Live. Thank you for coming back to the Adventures in Precision podcast. This is week 2, our second podcast ever, so hang with us. Hopefully you'll learn something and have a good time. How are you doing, guys?
Good.
Great. Second week's going to be our best week, right? At least so far.
The only easy day was yesterday. Laurel?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Beautiful. All right, so we have been steady after it. We've been doing everything from shooting the AG Cup to we shot a sniper match last weekend, and we're planning for the upcoming year. So we have basically completed all the matches. Do you guys have any more matches this year?
Nope.
No, I'm done. Pretty much done getting stuff ready for SHOT Show. I'll start the first match right after SHOT Show. I'll start in Texas.
SHOT Show.
I'll leave SHOT Show and go directly to
That's
that
a big
match.
topic, man. A lot of people love SHOT Show. What's your opinion on that? Does it live up to the hype?
You know, I don't know about the hype. I go there to work, right? So I don't really get to walk around and see all the stuff. And fact is, we get to see all the new stuff all the time anyway. Like most of that stuff before it comes out, we're seeing it trialed and tested in the field at the matches and so forth. So anything that really hits my sweet spot, I've probably already seen it, or, you know, I'll see it in the field and actually get to reach over, touch it, and use it.
Nice.
Right? So for me, SHOT Show is cool because I get to catch up with a lot of the vendors. I get to catch up with a lot of the sponsors, and I think that's really great. It's a work week for me. Like, you know, we're assembling rifles, assembling a booth, doing the booth, and then I go around, and it's kind of cool to see a few of the things I've heard about. I'm able to go take a look at it if it hasn't been out yet. Like SHOT Show, I think is something everybody should do once. I don't know if I would do it twice unless you're working it or, you know, working on relationships.
What's your experience with SHOT Show, Laurel?
I've been, I think, twice. This year will be my third year. And I think I don't work it. I just go and talk and see stuff. I think it's fun. I don't know how many times you need to do it in a row. But if you're there for, catching new sponsors and catching up with people and making meetings, then it's probably great. That's what I do with it. And I think it's probably good for that. If you're really big into, you're junkie and you love seeing all the new stuff and you want to be the first or some of the first to see it, then that's probably the place to go to do that. So, yeah. I don't know.
So for those of you that don't know what SHOT Show is, it's a industry show in Vegas that is like the place to be if you're a vendor in January. So, anyway, we're just jumping on that topic quickly because Keith mentioned it, and it's a pretty big deal in the shooting community. But, you know, it's like a lot of things. If you can get together with other people that are like-minded and you can make those connections, it really helps. So a lot of times SHOT Shows where the big deals are made, and that's what's fun to me is being able to talk to different people and make those connections so that you can really try to plan for the upcoming year and make those good deals and get the industry connections that we need to move forward. So what are you guys planning as far as what's your first match of the year going to be, and what's your goal for that coming up, and have we set any practice regimen changes or anything like that? How about you, Keith?
Well, I have a lot of plans to change my practice regimen, but up here where I'm at, it's going to be 20 degrees till then. There's going to be snow on the ground. It's really tough to get good practice when you have 4 layers of clothes on. I mean, your natural point of aim is not the same. Everything is not the same. So a little bit of, the gym exercise and, dry firing in the house is probably, out looking out the front window through the picture window is probably a lot better practice because I'm able to build a neutral body position and maintain that. If I have the opportunity to make a couple trips down south to you guys, 40 degrees, 20 degrees, that's is reasonable, but snow on the ground doesn't work.
What do you think about going into a match like Frostbite, where there's a match in Indiana that it's called Frostbite, and it's one of the first matches of the year that a lot of people shoot, and it's probably going to be pretty cold there. It could be 0 or it could be 30, but it's going to be cold. Does that maybe help in your instance where you're kind of in those conditions already?
I don't really think so because I'm just not able to put in, 2-3 hours of practice time each day at a time. So I go in green. What I should do is go down south and train with you guys for a week or, 3 or 4 days, then go up there and be tight, have that natural flow be where you just move from position to position, you flow into them and flow out, and that would be more beneficial. I mean, I do know how to dress for those conditions, right? And I have the right gear for that, and that's done a lot for me. I've found, I have a system of clothing that I can wear that works pretty good that doesn't restrict my movement, that is, very comfortable. So I think there's some benefits there that I have because I know what that gear looks like. It's not like hunting gear for me. It's match gear.
So share that with us a little bit. What can you share a little bit of what?
Yeah. So for me, basically, I don't do long john layers or any of the really tight fitting clothing layers, because I find as that goes through like multiple layers, it restricts my movement, the sliding. It doesn't have the ability to slide. So I have certain gear that works pretty well for me. And most of it is slippery on the inside. So like my outer is, I think I use a Columbia Delta Ridge puffer. It's like a 650. It's super thin, keeps me really warm, stops the wind. It's got that silver slick liner on the inside, and it packs down to nothing, goes in a backpack. I have that for underneath it, so I wear a puffy vest underneath it instead of a long sleeve. That way my arms aren't restricted. I'm feeling very comfortable that way. Below that, I use my Match poly sweatshirt. It's fairly slippery. It's a hoodie, so it gets a little more warmth around my neck. Then I'll wear a long sleeve slippery shirt like a jersey, and then a short sleeve slippery shirt like a Sport Tech shirt or something like that underneath it. When I wear long johns, I find that it binds. If I need something more, I can throw a raincoat over top of that puffer, and it's real thin, so it's not moving my chest out.
Yeah, so like one of the things I've kind of learned in all the adventures that we do is there's a few things that to me are very important. One is that we're not wearing cotton, so we're getting any of the cotton off of us. So anybody that's listening, that maybe if you're kind of new to the shooting sports, or you're going out hunting for the first time, or you're doing any of that stuff, like the old saying for the guides is cotton is rotten. So get that off of you. Try to get some merino wool or something like that on your base layer, and then good socks, merino wool socks, that type of thing. And for me, it's exactly what Keith is saying. If I'm not worried about getting wet, I like the down jacket and a windbreaker for cutting the wind. So if you can insulate and cut the wind, you can pretty much stay warm in anything. And I like the little thin merino wool gloves to shoot in too. I can actually still shoot my rifle just fine wearing those. I can feel the trigger. So, and I know, Laurel, you actually had a change of attire here lately when we go out shooting some of the colder matches. You got a nice puffy jacket. What do you think about some of that stuff?
So, I don't know. I'm a big fan of layers, and I'm a big fan of the company. And it's called Beyond. I think it's owned by 511 maybe, but I wear a lot of their base layers underneath like my jersey, and then I'll have some sort of hoodie and a puffer jacket. But what Andy's talking about is my giant suit, and I look like a giant gray marshmallow. You can't barely see me.
The marshmallow suit.
And honestly, I've worn it in like 4 matches, and I keep the pants on all the time. I haven't ripped the knees or anything. Like, I do take off the jacket because it's huge, but I have all the base layers underneath it, so I'm pretty warm. And then I put it back on after I'm done shooting, so I stay pretty darn toasty the whole time. I'm never really that cold.
I love the happy suit.
And as I remember, that coat hangs almost to your knees or your ankles, right?
Yeah, it goes way past my butt. Like,
Yeah.
it's really long.
So the interesting thing is you've got some big arteries on the insides of your legs. So having that parka length jacket when it's really cold outside, especially if you're going to be static, just standing there waiting to shoot or whatever, it makes all the difference being able to have that parka length coat. So I've got one of the Army PCU level 7 tops, and it comes down exactly like Laurel's does. And it is so comfortable. Like everybody else will be freezing to death, and you can just stand there and laugh at them because
Yeah.
it's so warm. But I think one of the main reasons there is because it comes down and covers your arteries. It's keeping your legs warm around your thighs.
So, what do you guys wear for gloves? I wear like literally my favorite gloves, and I took them from fishing years ago. Is the Harbor Freight vinyl front work gloves with the mesh back, and I cut the fingers out of them, right? Fingers and thumbs, and that's good to about 30 degrees. And then I'll put a rag glove and just cut all the fingers out of it if it's really cold and put it over top.
Yeah, so I use a set of Under Armour Merino wool gloves, and they fit real tight against your fingers, and when I say tight, it's not like constricting the blood flow tight. It's just they fit well, and then I feel like I can actually feel the trigger just fine in them, maybe slightly less than without them, but like it still has real good feel. And for me, that'll go down to about, I don't know an exact temperature range, but where it's cold outside, you're wearing a coat, you know. If it gets like super cold, I like the what we call glittens, where it's like the little half finger gloves and you've got the mitten top that folds over it. And if we're at a match, I'll actually take the foot warmers that have the sticky back and I'll stick it inside of the mitten part. And that way, when you fold the mitten back over your hand, you've got the foot warmer in there keeping your hands warm. So when you go to the trigger, you can feel really good.
So, do you feel when you use those hand warmers? I've always felt like if I use hand warmers, then I need them.
So I think what happens if we're not careful, if we're using materials that don't breathe, is you sweat with the hand warmers. But if you're using the
Okay.
merino wool insulates even though it's wet. So even if you sweat a little bit, it still has an insulating property. It's one of the only materials out there that actually will still keep you warm when it's wet. That's why it's really important. Like cotton is bad, merino wool good, because if you sweat a little bit, the merino wool will still keep you warm. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. If we're not careful, our hands will sweat with the hand warmers, and then when you go away from them, the moisture is causing your cold. So with the merino wool liners, it really helps to mitigate some of that, I think. But my problem is like the blood flow. Like I want to keep the blood flow going to that finger so I can really feel it, and that the heat from the hand warmer I feel keeps the hand warm enough where the blood's flowing good. Now I don't do that for like elk hunting. If we're elk hunting, I don't take hand warmers or anything because you're going to be moving, right? Like you're in a match scenario, you're kind of static. You're hurry up and wait. So you shoot 90 seconds really fast, and then you stand there for another hour. So for me, that's why I use the hand warmers when we're doing the competitions, and it's the foot warmers that have the sticky back to them. All right, so
So, what do you use, Laurel? We didn't hear what old Parka kid wears.
I wear gloves. They're usually just some random thin kind. But other than that, I keep like hot hands in my pockets, and I don't usually shoot with gloves.
Take them and the coat off and go into bib.
And then you shoot, and then you put it back on. You put your hands in your pockets, and you're good.
cool thing about the glittens is you can keep three of your four fingers in the mitten part, and then just stick the one finger out
Oh,
of it. So even if you're not wearing gloves under them, you can if it's really cold. I'm talking like, I mean, we've shot in 0 degrees, where it's like it's super cold. So if you keep three of those fingers in the glitten and then you've got the one trigger finger out, you can keep the blood flowing in your hand too, so that you keep that feel.
you ever run? Have you guys ever tried the electric vest, the power vest, or any of that stuff? Because
I heard the Milwaukee ones are pretty nice. I haven't tried it yet, but I had one of the ones that you just plug into a battery pack, and the battery packs are usually heavy and they kind of die quick. So, but the Milwaukee ones, I guess, like blow hot air on you. Maybe one of them does, and the other ones are just kind of heated everywhere. They're pretty nice, but I haven't tried one out yet.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. That'd be interesting. So what's the last match you shot, Laurel? Have you shot any matches lately?
No, I shot the finale, and I took like a month off to kind of not get burnt out too fast because I have a lot planned for this year.
What's your plan look like?
So I have the Loophole match right after SHOT Show, so flying from SHOT Show to Texas. And then I have a couple planned to go to Norway for the Viking Trail match. I have several matches out west, like Colorado, Washington, California, those kinds of places. And then I have a lot on the East Coast. So I have they're kind of everywhere. And then we have the world competition in Colorado. in, I believe, September, I want to say.
Yeah. So a lot of people that are listening to this might be like, "What? You could go international with a rifle? What does that look like?" I know you've done that, went to France, did a bunch of cool stuff. So what does it look like to? And we'll probably do like an in-depth podcast about this at some point. But like briefly, what does that look like to fly with a rifle?
Honestly, everyone thinks it's really difficult, and as long as you follow the rules or follow the steps, it's nothing terrible or miserable. You will get pulled to the side and questioned. I get questioned almost every time because we carry the mediums, the big sandbags, and I carry them on my carry on, I guess. And so they almost always, well, you just carry it outside your bag is what I do, and then they flag it and whatever you got to go through and get questioned. Other than that, it's pretty smooth. You take it up, you get it checked to make sure it's unloaded. Ammo's in a separate spot. You lock it. Make sure you have 4 locks. It goes in, and you're good.
So I've heard of a lot of people doing the carry-on thing. It's right or wrong. I've always put it in my check bag and never had an issue. So I was just curious.
I carry it on the plane because there's been people that show up to the matches and they have gotten cut because of the TSA. People don't know how to open them up to see if it's sand or what is it. So they'll just slice the top of it and like empty the sand out and just put the bag back in there or something. So I just don't take a chance. And if you take it through carry on and get it checked, they just swab it. They'll ask you what it's for, but I don't put it in
Yeah.
my bag. And it gives me extra room for clothes.
I was going to say it comes down to weight. You got 50 pounds, which is your rifle in a case anymore. You can't even hardly get any ammo in the daggone cases because all the cases, my case weighs 27 pounds and my rifle weighs 22. Now I'm at 50 pounds with locks, right? And then I pack my clothes in my carry on. The only thing I take out of it is my sandbag. And I do that because that's 8 more pounds of crap I can pack in that's the biggest pain in the butt is then now you're carrying an extra 8 pounds in your backpack on the
So I just
plane.
thought about this, guys.
Minimal.
Switching gears a little bit. I had an opportunity yesterday to go to my local high school and coach their brand new rifle team. So our
What?
local high school, no idea. So when I went to school, that was not a thing. Through the JROTC program, their rifle three position competition team. And I am super excited to see that. I think that's the future of shooting sports is trying to figure out how to get involved at that low level. So I have volunteered to help coach that somehow or another with all the time that I have. And and but the people were super receptive. The young kids there were, you know, really eager to learn, and some of them were really good, and some of them were really bad. But that's kind of we'll definitely be able to coach them. They were all very coachable. I'm excited to see that though. Do you guys have shooting sports in your area?
Yeah, we have a JROTC in Bedford, and then we have a 4-H shooting team that I help out with. Yeah.
And my local clubs have a bunch of junior shooters that are coached that really compete nationally. Like we've got some really good stuff around.
So my mind immediately went to like, how can we make these kids like the best high school team out there, right? Because I'm not competitive by nature at all, right? So we find college coaches and we ask them if we can have their uh, pre-shot routine, their pre-stage checklist, their gear checklist. Like ask them if they have any notes about these specific rifles they're using. Like I don't know, my mind's just kind of going a thousand different directions trying to figure out how to help these kids, and then seeing if we can get with some of the Olympic coaches and maybe looking at how they're approaching the positions because it's admittedly way outside of what I do, right? I mean, it's three position. I'm a little familiar with it, but like you really want to make sure that you're trying to teach them the right information and not just what I know from military experience. So I think it's interesting, and I think we could maybe apply that to some of the other things in life where when we're going through like squatting, for example, like not being afraid to squad with good shooters. So some of that strategy when we're looking at how do we get help is just not being afraid to ask the question, like what should I do to get better? What can I do? Do you mind if I watch you? And I'm thinking about making some of those phone calls and just asking the question, Like, what should I do to help these kids get to your level? What does that path look like to get to the next level?
Right. And most people into shooting sports are going to share that information. Like they're going to, just like you, they're going to find a path to come help to move that forward. You're a product of your competition. So if you surround yourself with greatness, then you're going to get better. As you're coming up as a competitor and you're like, oh, I'm not going to go to this match because Andy Slade or Austin Orgain or whoever's going to be there, right? Because I want a chance to win that. Well, you're never going to get any better than you get. Like you're handicapping your ability to learn and move forward. If you're always shooting in those next level competitions and then you squad with better shooters and you see different ways to think and mindsets, and everybody that I've ran into has always been really willing to help, ask the right questions at the right time, and then you will move your game forward. Find a couple people you like to work with and then try and blend in with people that have more experience and try and take that experience and, leverage that experience to help you get better, because the beauty of this game is everybody will pretty much work with each other. This is a really open community, which is one of its most attractive features.
What's your thoughts on that, Laurel, as far as squadding goes?
So I like to squad with you guys or with Mr. Walter. But if you guys aren't there or the squad fills up too much, like too fast, I usually try to squad with like random people that I don't know. So I don't know who they are, so they could be great or they could be terrible, and then you could always learn something. Or I like to meet new people and talk to them, and if they need help, I try to help them a little bit, and I'll learn stuff from them. It might be, you never know. So I try to, instead of like squad with someone random, it might be a new youth shooter that needs some help, I don't know. But never know till you get there, so it's a fun surprise. It's like Christmas.
Right? My favorite thing used to be the first one in a squad, find a squad with nobody, put my name at the top, and walk away.
Yeah, so when you go to these matches, if you're not familiar, the match is broken down. There'll be, let's say, 200 shooters. There'll be 20 different groups of people called squads, and then so basically there will be groups of 10 that will shoot each little event. So there'll be 20 different events, like smaller events within the big competition, and then each group that you move with is called your squad, and usually you're allowed to pick who you shoot with, and that can be very strategic. So for me, at least, if I have the opportunity, I definitely want at least one like ride or die, like Keith and Laurel, so that I can say, hey, this is what I'm planning on starting with. Wind wise, I'm going to shoot 4/10. That's going to be, let's say it's a right to left wind. I'm going to hold 4/10 right. I think it's whatever it is, 6 mile an hour at 2 o'clock, whatever it is. And Keith says, hey, that's not exactly what I had. I had a 130, but cool, let's see what happens. And then I go shoot it. I'm like, you know what, Keith? I think you were more like your 130. And that helps both of us, and it's completely legal to do that. So at least the way the rules are written now. Now, one of the reasons we like the AG Cup is because it's completely individual, so you're not able to talk about that stuff. But as long as the competition allows it, you kind of need to be in a squad that you can talk to the squad mates about that kind of thing, because if you're not, you're at a disadvantage. So if you ever go to a match and you're like, you know what, I don't think we should talk about win. Well, the first place guy, I guarantee you, is talking about win. So we need to make sure that we kind of understand that strategy. And it's like anything else in life, if we're communicating with other people that are doing the same thing and sharing our experiences, we'll definitely learn more and not have to reinvent the wheel. So AG Cup, Keith.
I think it's pretty awesome. Yours is bigger than mine. That's what the AG Cup is for me. Like, I love it is the match for me. Like every year, I have very few goals, and my goal every year is to do well in that match, because I truly believe that is the only match that the top level shooters are able to shoot against the top level shooters in the same conditions, with nobody helping each other or minimal help. Like, they get to watch them now, but there's no win talk. And, basically it's you figure it out. You solve the problem. You can't talk about how to solve the problem with anybody else. You can't talk about what you used for wind, what you think about for wind. It is you versus the world and all the best. And you're typically squatted in just two squads and you flip back and forth. So your conditions are as close as we can control, right? And it should average out at the end of the day. So we're both squad one and squad two. They're shooting long ranges at the same time. Then they flip and they just shoot the other one the other ones did. And nobody talks about wind. So if the conditions are unfortunate for one person or another, that is managed as best as possible. And there's a lot of great shooters that what I call monkey see, monkey do, right? They are very good at executing a firing solution. They are very good and better than a lot of the best shooters, at building a position, doing what they see someone else does, working together to solve a win solution, right? I mean, they really become a great team that way. And that is a skill set that I think is amazing, right? Really, I'm attracted to that individual side a little bit, right? Where the best to see how I stack up against the best, because at least then I'm in those windows of we all have the same conditions and I can compare myself against that squad, that match. I'm attracted to the AG Cup, like where I feel whoever wins the AG Cup every year is the best shooter that weekend.
And that was you, right, Andy? It was your first time, right, shooting the AG Cup?
It was my first AG Cup experience. Yes, ma'am.
Was there any, major challenges that you faced during it while you were there? Like, you were like, oh, gosh.
Fortunately, we had shot enough matches previously where I kind of run my own plan anyway. So I think there's an evolution of a shooter where you start out and you ask everybody what they're doing. And then you get to a point where you realize half the people have no idea. So then you go to the guy that you trust and you're like talking to him about what he's doing. And then you realize at some point that you just have to run your own program anyway. So I was real fortunate in that I had already made it to that point in my shooting career. And I would have loved to have shot the AG Cup previously. I just couldn't afford it. And I felt like I got to the point this year where I couldn't afford not to. So the AG Cup is the Armageddon Gear Cup, and Tom owns Armageddon Gear. And I was at a match one time, and I'd finished second place, and Tom came waddling by me with the big checks, and he's like trying to slide through everybody, like squeezing through because he's got these huge checks. And he's like, Andy, I thought you finished second. He's like, why ain't your name on this check? I'm like, I'm not in the AG Cup, Tom. And he's like, well, that seems dumb. This check's $1,700. And then he just keeps waddling by, Well, at that point, he was right, because throughout the year, I would have more than made my money back. And, for some people, maybe they wouldn't. But I feel like right now, where we're at in the game, it's a pretty good bet that if you're shooting a lot of these AG Cup matches, you're going to make your money back. So anyway, the reason I hadn't done it previously is because, to be real honest, I don't make a lot of money, and $1,000 entry fee and then $250 for each match above and beyond your normal entry fee just seemed cost prohibitive. But sometimes you got to swing the bat, and man, I'm so happy that I did, and so happy for the support that I get from some of the other companies out there that kind of help me along, and I'm not spending as much money on some of the gear and stuff that I normally would. So now I'm able to go and do things like this. So yeah, it was awesome.
Was there any, stages that stood out that you were like, okay?
So did you watch it live, Laurel? Were you watching the AG Cup? Because that was super cool. My wife and kids were watching it online. They were keeping track of the scores, and they were book facing it live and all that stuff.
I was watching the scores. I was actually in the middle of the mountain hiking, so I couldn't watch it on, the video, but I was updating the scores all the time watching it.
Appreciate your support, Laurel.
Well, I was there for you.
No, actually, you weren't. If you had been there, you'd actually been there.
I know. All right, Andy. What was your biggest takeaway from this?
I would have to say that my biggest takeaway was that $30,000 check. That was what I took away
Yeah.
from the match. Was
More than everybody else.
yeah, and I would love to, we had definitely talked about Tammy having a different vehicle at the end of this, so that's important. There's also some parts that my drag truck needs too. So I sent the accountant a message as soon as I got back and was like, I need to know what to do with this. So we'll see. I have no idea what you actually get to keep out of something like that. I guess he'll be able to help me out with whatever I need to do with that. But that'll be interesting. I have no idea.
Well, I got a
We
question.
need a drag race update.
What are you going to do to make sure you win it next year? Because I'm already working on that list for me. Different. What are you changing?
I felt like it was very well executed, but at the same time, there were a lot of points left on the board. So I can't remember what the total hit percentage was at the end of the match, but it was not really where I would have liked it to have been. So I would say I would like to probably work on speed a little bit because man, there's a lot of money on the table. Every stage was worth $1,000, and I think there were multiple stages that I could have won. Just been a little bit more efficient, and I wouldn't have had to shoot a lot faster. I could have just worked on that economy of motion and speed, and maybe took $10,000 in stage wins home as well as the win. So the funny thing about this match, guys, is I won the match and only won one stage. And there were 30 shooters there. So, but some of the guys' strategy was just to shoot as fast as possible and win as many stages as possible. And funny enough, like John Pinch won a ton of stages and because, he was had that strategy, um, I think in his mind, his rifle wasn't shooting as good as he wanted it to. And so a couple stages he didn't do really well. And, John's one of the best shooters out there, but he didn't end up making it to day three. And whether that was gear related or whatever happened, I don't know. But he won more stages than anybody, I
I think he
think.
took 5, and then Francis, another fast shooter, took 4. But I'm not sure of this, but I think the top 3, me, you, and Clay, I won one stage, you won one stage, and I don't know if Clay won more than one stage. I think we all shot the long game, and you're 100% right. I mean, I think you can shoot that match faster and still shoot it as well, right? I think there is
Yep.
room there. I think you can execute those stages more efficiently and not have a lower score. And I think that's an opportunity, right?
I do think it's interesting that it was 105 part time because it gave you the time if you wanted to say, you know what, in order to get the hits, I need to think about this, or I need to build a better position, or use that piece of gear like a rear tripod. But it also allowed you to go fast if you wanted to. So, like, sometimes you would have a guy like go up there with bag only and go super fast, and then a guy go up there with a tripod rear and barely make it in time, but he had the time to do it. So it was interesting to me that they gave you the 105 par time with this level of shooters. I actually really like that.
Yeah. I think at 105 and I mean, that 105 was sporty on a lot of those 12 round stages.
Right.
That was not a simple PRS barricade in 105. That was, you had to be pushing it.
12 different.
But I used a tripod a lot. But when I used a tripod, I had to be making 3-second follow up shots instead of 5-6 second follow up shots. You had to, if you were going to take that extra 5-10 seconds here, 20 seconds or 30, you needed to make it up somewhere else or you were giving up shots. Precision became more important than speed. So next year, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to work on being more efficient with your economy of motion.
Tripod work.
The tripod, that is a tripod match because the targets are so small. That extra stability just allows you to see your misses just a little bit better. People call tripods gamers, but dude, if you can still do it in the same time frame and you can hit smaller targets and or make better corrections, it's not really a bad thing.
So you mentioned the truck bed. So there was a truck turned sideways and you shot off of the roof, and everybody used the bipod for the most part, everybody I saw anyway. And then the big difference in approach was whether you took a tack table in there or not. And I said, man, I've shot out of a truck bed many times. I don't need a tack table. Like, what are these dudes doing? They're just going to waste time. It was 12 shots. Like, I figure I could use the extra time to build the stability. I hit 3 out of 4 on the first run off of the truck, missed the first shot due to wind, corrected it, got it right, down to the second position, which was on the middle of the truck bed. And I remember specifically thinking, so years ago when I used to teach foreign military stuff, I used to intentionally tell them, like, they had this saying, inshallah, which meant God's will. So all they believed was they had to release the bullet and God would steer it. And I believe God does a lot of things, but I used to tell them God doesn't care where your bullets go. Well, when I got in that middle position, I was like, God, maybe you do care about where my bullet goes. I could really use some help right now because that that reticle was moving all over the place, and I just kind of went back to the high power days and added pressure until the shot broke, and I got super lucky and hit 2 of them there because there was no way I should have hit 2 there, and then ended up with like a 7 on the stage or something, which I felt terrible about and knew I messed up, but it was just one of those deals where had it been a normal truck, so I went up there after the match and that truck bed, the welds were actually broke loose on the bed. And so the whole side rail was just moving around like crazy, and it had a plastic cap on the bed liner, and the bed liner was moving and the bed rail was moving, and there was just no way to get stable. So the way to shoot that stage definitely was with tripod rear on a tack table, but how do you know? They didn't let us touch it beforehand, and I was just going off of prior experience, and it bit me a little bit there. But whew, I have to say, I think God did care about my bullets that day because there's no other way I should have hit those targets. We've got to do a quick drag racing update. So one of the things I think is going to be fun is that Keith and I are both super excited about drag racing right now, and we met some guys down in Mooresville that are drag racing for a living, and we shoot for a living. And I think they're a little bit burnt out on drag racing, and we're a little bit burnt out on shooting. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just when you do it for a living, it kind of gets that way, right? So we got to get together recently, and Biggin down in Mooresville owns Mooresville Dragway. We got to go shooting with those guys and had a great time with them. I'm currently working on an S10 twin turbo LS deal. I got my turbos in the other day. I got a 9-inch in for it, so we're going to be putting that together here soon. Got the cage, so I'm going to be learning how to TIG weld again. I took welding in college, but I might need Laurel to come down and give me some refresher courses. Because, Laurel, you know something about welding, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Great. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. I will be doing a long travel front end on it and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So anyway, it's going to be a do it all truck, but mainly I want to be able to do drag week, which unfortunately looks like it's going to land on the freaking IPRF weekend this year. I will not be going to drag week if that ends up being the case, but Keith said we'll go to Rocky Mountain Drag Week. So
right. We'll go to Colorado, do Rocky Mountain Race Week.
yeah. And then Keith is looking for a car. What are we looking for, Keith?
I think I'm going to do the G-Body Shuffle. So when I raced years ago, I did the roundy rounds and the G-Bodies were a thing. And I've got a really nice car, and then I've got a really nice street car, and I want just a good old-fashioned race car that I can cut up and tear up and put about 1,000 horsepower to the ground and make it hook up on the no prep stuff and do the drag week. Like, I want to take my kids or a good friend and spend, that endurance week. We never have any time off. Like, Laurel, you got 2 months off-ish, a month and a half off, right? SHOT Show give you a month and a half. There's no off season for us, right? We just finished with the AG Cup last week. We got SHOT Show in 3 weeks. And then we start the matches immediately thereafter. And if you're going to do it for a living, you got to be doing it all the time, and we don't have a down season. But I could take a week off, right? And I could take a week off and do drag week, and I could take a few days of a week off and tune a car and that kind of stuff. So right now I'm going to go to Michigan this afternoon, and I'm going to look at a Malibu. I'm going to try and find me A clean G body. It's got everything good about it. I don't care about the paint job. Patina paint job's just fine. The OG original, but I want to go really fast. I'm collecting parts.
So one of the interesting things, people are always like, how do you have time to do this? Hell yeah. For anybody listening to this that thinks you don't have time to do any kind of project, go work on it a little bit a day, like an hour a day. It's just like your practice. You want to get better at PRS? Work on it an hour a day. You want to get your project done in your garage? Go work on it an hour a day. So like when I did my Jeep, we did a LS swap, tons, 60 in the front, 14 bolt in the rear, supercharged LS, Holly Terminator deal. It's a lot of fun. It'll smoke the ever living crap out of all four tires. Like, it's fun. I built that thing while I was working full time, while I was shooting full time, and 4 kids and a wife that was super supportive of it. She would bring me supper at the garage, and I would work on it an hour or two a day, and then I would go to work, and then I'd come home. So anyway, you can do it. You go out and you just put the effort in every day, and then eventually it'll get done. But how it won't get done is saying you're going to work on it on the weekend, and you're end up, something comes up this weekend, and then next weekend something comes up. That's not how you get better at anything. You got to put the time in every day.
Well, I think a little bit of a distraction helps too. Like, I feel if I'm focused all the time on shooting, I become a little more complacent. It's just like if you drive a car all the time for a living, all of a sudden you don't remember the drive, right? If you're shooting all the time, then you forget those little pieces. When you can take your mind and throw it in a different place, maybe it's bass fishing, maybe it's hiking in the woods, and for, working on race cars. Like, if I can take that little bit of drive and focus there, then when I turn and come back to shooting, I'm really eager and anxious and hungry.
I will tell you going into the AG Cup, I made this comment. Keith can tell you. Keith, I think one of the things that's going to help me shoot well this weekend is I'm excited about my truck.
Right.
Because every time that I started to get nervous, I would go back to my shooting process, make sure it was all done, and then I would go back and start researching race parts. Because we couldn't look through glass. That was at the shoot. There was one of the rules was you could only look through glass when they gave you that opportunity, so you couldn't watch the other shooters. So there was really nothing to do with your mind unless if you weren't careful, you could get into your own head. So for me, one of the ways that I stayed out of that, what's the next move on the truck? And I would just go start like looking into that. So because I was super excited about that, I think it really led to some of that performance. And I think you're exactly right, Keith. I think having something to be excited about your day-to-day stuff more interesting.
What excites you, Laurel?
My dog.
I want to know how that Dobie's.
My dog.
How about that pointy-ear dog you have?
He's good. He's learning tricks.
I want to see him.
He's learning how to souk. Do you guys know what souking is? No?
Tell us.
Souking is tracking. I learned that.
Huh, I didn't know that.
We're going to souk. Yeah.
We doing boxes right now?
Yeah, and steps.
Yeah. Is his ears untaped? Is he back to normal now?
No, not all the way.
Yeah.
I think it'll take a...
My dog's favorite thing in the morning is to track. Like,
I don't think mine is. He's just hungry.
His favorite thing to do is up. Like, she knows that command, and when I give it to her, she loves it. Like, I can tell her up on anything, and she'll, like, up on top of the counter. I can tell her up on a bar stool, and she'll sit on the bar stool for me. So it's really fun right now. All right, guys, so we got to wrap this thing up. Do we have any closing thoughts, Laurel?
Excited for episode 3, or podcast 3, whatever we call it, to see what else we can ramble on about and learn from each other and teach other people.
I'm excited about seeing you guys in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm ready to shut off and be ready for Christmas, amp it back up. I'll see Laurel. I'll see both of you at SHOT, and then Laurel in Texas for sure. And then I'm excited to get. I miss the matches, but I'm excited for the downtime and looking forward to our next episode. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I had 3 goals this year, right? To bring home a trophy at the finale. I wanted to get the all-time lifetime points championship, and I wanted to bring home an AG Cup. I brought home an AG Cup, not the best one, but a pretty damn good one. I locked up the all-time lifetime points. The trophy I got in Kansas at the finale was a whitetail with the MDT van, totaled it. And yesterday morning, bought us a new truck. We bought a new truck, and we've got a lot of other cool things that we're going to outfit with this year. a more exciting program. And as I get the rest of the components purchased for that, the MDT is going to have a pretty legit rig that we'll be traveling around the country with. And the three of us should be pretty daggone comfortable in it if it works out that way.
Heated seats?
No heated seats. Nope, but
Dang.
big motor and big tires.
All right, so that's going to wrap us up for episode 2. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We're really excited about what's coming. We're going to be going into YouTube here soon, and we're going to be doing some cool competitions between each other, and we're going to be doing some really cool adventures as we travel throughout the country and even the world, and we hope you'll follow along with us. All right, so real quick, before we jump off of here, let's make sure that people know how to find us. Laurel, go.
I'm Long Range Laurel on just about everything. And longrangelaurel@gmail.com if you need to get a hold of me.
I'm pretty easy to find. It's iceriflesonline.com, or you can find me on Facebook as Keith Baker or Ice Rifles.
I'm Andy Slade. You can find me at Rifleman's Path or Rifleman's Outfitter. Rifleman's Path is the training company. Rifleman's Outfitter is the store. And then Andy at riflemanspath.com is my email address if you need to get a hold of me. Thanks again, guys.
Bye.
See you at a match sometime.